I haven't given you an antenna field tour for a long time. And if you're new to the channel, you're probably going to want to know how everything works. So let me show you. We're going to start off inside here. There's a number of boxes of tricks here. Let's just focus on this middle one. All our antennas come into here, okay? All these. That heavy, thick one there, which is loose. That's blooming typical. That is 10 metres. Big, thick one here. But anyway, every single one of these comes into here. Then it's distributed on a switch inside, and when we do the shack tour, I'll show you all that. But it goes either left or it goes right. Okay, if it goes left, it comes into this box, okay, which is an antenna switch. Now then, we've got two of these boxes because this will do 8 antennas to 4 radios. But we use 2 VFO radios. So in fact, antenna port, this left block, if you like, does radio, the first radio, this one here, on VFO A, the main VFO. This is for the second radio, VFO A. Then we get this other box, which is effectively for radios 3 and 4, which we use the first radio, VFO B, and the second radio, VFO B. Because a lot of you know, I particularly enjoy a dual VFO synchronized frequency. So on 40 meters on the daytime, I like using 2 different antennas. You get a great experience, particularly on pile-ups. You get this kind of 3D map appear. Done a few videos on that in the past. The switching is controlled via this little box here. And these wires here come into effectively what looks like an RS-232 connector at the bottom of this thing here. And that's these via left or right. Now another piece of software determines which port we want on here. We've got another thing, we've got some spare wires across the top. This here is for the 4 square, because I'll show you in a minute, we've got 4 big verticals at the bottom of the field, and we can fire them and have directivity on 40 meter band, right? So that's kind of what this box does. There's another box here which is our Rotator Genius, and it says an IP address, so this is controlled via the network. And again, one of the reasons I've gone down this route here is you get a nice piece of software, because I want a remote desktop experience. You know, whether that is remote desktop from Microsoft, TeamViewer. I particularly like Rust Desk at the moment, and that means everything can be on the screen and I can just remote control everything. So that's what's in this shed. Oh, there's one other little thing, apart from the fact that it's actually full of my tools and everything. The little coax distribution point here. There's a couple other odds and ends. There's a little ubiquity switch here. There's a 12 volt distribution fuse board. And in this box here, we've got 12 volts and 24 volts power supplies. We need 24 volts for this thing here, because Yaesu rotators, modern Yaesu rotators, want 24 volts DC. So that Genius box, I'll take any voltage. You can put 6 volts in, 24 volts, AC, DC, doesn't matter. But whatever you pump in there has to go out effectively to the rotator. So it'll work off, 48 volts AC. But that you need a 48 volt AC rotator. Anyway, so I've gone down a 24 volt world because that's the way it works. So that's kind of what's in this box. Now the coax actually starts its journey down the bottom of this path here. So the back of the shack is next to the blue generator, just to the right. There's a box of tricks. So there's 2 very big pieces of coax. This is called EcoFlex 15, and that's for Radio 1, Radio 2. Main VFO transmits, okay? And these were originally backups, but they're VFO. The second VFO for Radio 1, Radio 2. There's a ton more cables coming out. Most are redundant because all of this now, most of it, is via Ethernet. But when we started plumbing this in, we didn't really have any Ethernet out there, so it was all old-fashioned control cables and stuff. So when we first moved in, the landlord literally dug up this. Lucky for us, they haven't re-concreted this in because we've got a ton more coax to put in here. And he put a big trench in, laid a 4-inch pipe, and Mike and I, M0MSN, came along and pulled, I think it was 11 cables, including mains cables, out to here. It's all been checked, don't worry about the mains side of things. There's a few people that have had a panic attack because I've put mains in this box on a blue caravan cable, effectively underground. We've got an impressive array of odds and ends here, but I'm going to start off inside the forest because in here we've got some interesting prototypes and stuff that some of this I don't use anymore, but under here somewhere is what they call a loop on the ground. A loop on the ground is about 3 or 4 meters square, right? They say 15 feet square, so 15 feet by 15, there we are. Fed with a little transformer, and you can buy a loop on the ground transformer for pennies, or you can make them yourself, and you get and it's literally under the grass, under the leaves here, and you get a super low noise, low signal, great for 40 meters, 80 meters and 160, because most modern radios have got a preamp button, so we bring the whole the noise floor right down to zilch, put the preamp on, and then signals which are arriving at an angle, remember, the loop on the ground picks it up, boosts the signal, and it's a wonderful receive experience. But I think I've run out of ports and disconnected it, but that worked very well because we have even better thing. We've got a higher gain, low noise alternative, which is something called a delta loop. Now we put that in, it must have been about a year ago actually. That's a 4-to-1 balun that Mike made. There's a video about that balun. Apparently we got that wrong as well. And this is at a triangle, okay? We're just over halfway around. I've put these big head connectors in. And then I have to be careful because this holly bush, it's completely in the way. I think I might have to cut that back. I might do that later. So it's a triangle, and that goes back to the balun. To be honest, if I only had 2 antennas, I would want a DX Commander Signature 9 for my low angle stuff. And if I could have a delta loop like this, it'd be wonderful. The reason is that it's kind of multi-band because you get 40 meters, that daytime NVIS. I mean, there's no way I'd get Rolly on 40 meters on this, right, down in New Zealand, because a big bubble of RF goes all the way up. However, you get 40, but you also get 20, 15 and 10. And the higher up you go, proportionally, you're slightly higher in terms of wavelength to height above ground. But on 20 meters, you get a wonderful first hop for about 1,500 kilometers. Wonderful first hop. It's quite high angle, you see, down, very loud. But obviously it's not low angle. Works 15 and 10 as well, perfectly. So that's lovely. I quite often have that on my right here if I've got a low angle antenna, Yagi or vertical or something, on my left here. So that's the delta loop. You might also remember a couple of months ago, just to show people what you could do with a bit of scrap, we put this in. So this is a 20 meter vertical made from scrap and a bit of old aluminium. The aluminium pipe is the ground, although we've got some radials kicking out. And there's a wire that just goes up the tree. These radials are 7 feet long or 2 meters. Both stations are remote controllable. Rowley tells me he uses this little crappy thing quite a lot on 20, says it's great. So if you wanted to experience what a vertical might be like, make a little vertical from scrap. That was just an old aluminium pipe. It could have been a brick, frankly. It didn't need to be conductive. And just put all the radials on the braid, you know, coat it with some rubbery glue stuff and you're away. All right, so let's go down the bottom of the field now. So the original plan, I definitely wanted a 4-square for 40 meters. Because I think 40 meters is quite an amazing piece of kit, actually. I wanted 40 meters. Now, because a 4-square on 40 meters requires 4 verticals, so here's one there, and the spacing between each vertical is very, very precise. Ignore all this stuff in a minute, that's for the mast, all right? Let's look at the vertical. These are DX Commander Signature 9 poles, dug the holes, and we put in the 4 square. Now, I also wanted a little mast. I wanted, ideally, originally I was going to put a cubical quad up, and I thought, can you put a mast in the middle of a 4 square? Now the books will tell you don't do it. However, I did some mathematical experiments using MMA and AA, not necessarily on a 4 square. I think I used a 2-element array actually, and I put a 12-meter grounded mast in the middle of it, completely in the middle of it, and it was on the maths it was invisible, so I thought it was worthwhile doing. So this was a hell of an experiment to put a mast in the middle of a 4 square, but it does work. As some of you know, we've had some amazing DX on this 4 square. By the way, the cabling around here is always in a mess because at the moment I'm forever changing stuff. So you pull the cable out, you put it back in, pull it out. So the cable mess, for instance, in the coax distribution box is a bit of a mess. Now that 4 square comes with a control box. So what we got, this is inside the box. These are the 4 verticals. Is that one loose? No. This is for a 50 ohm dummy load, weirdly enough. It requires a dummy load on this circuit. All these ferrites here is the main in, and we've got the control cable on these as well, to switch the relays. Everything's grounded to a copper rod just behind here. And that's really, at the moment, all that's in this box, thank goodness. We had a spot of rain just then. And then those 2 coax come up right up the top of the tower, and we're running a 2-element homebrew for 20 and a 3-element SY3 from Sirio. Mike M0MCX gave that to me. I'd have loved to have built it, but another day. You can see right at the top the prototype 160 metres getting blown slightly to the right. And now we've got another box because I'll run you through the tower. All is in here is a massive battery, a solar charger, and a big winch. And that is for, I call it the tower because it sounds better than the mast. And frankly, it's my toy. I can call it what I want. You can probably tell what's going to happen. This is something called a falling derrick. So we put the winch on basically on this line here by reducing the tension on these back stays and pulling on call them forward stays if you like. If this is a ship, let's go to the bow now. We just pull on here and the whole thing comes over, all right? So I'm not going to do it now because it's about a 10-minute job, and I don't have 10 minutes because I think it's going to rain, but there we are. And that's great. It's about, it comes over in about a minute. We can do maintenance, fit antennas, whatever else, and the thing goes back up. The whole tower rotates. So we've got a GS 2800 from Yaesu at the bottom here. More grounding going on at the moment, but I'll cover why in a minute. The whole tower rotates on these G065 bearings from Yaesu, and then we just cut a slot in this two steel poles, and then we have aluminium at the top. So the coax or anything else we want to put up here will go up here and just pull it through. And then the funny thing sticking out there, that is a magnetic set, a compass effectively, and that tells the Rotator Genius which way this thing is pointing, because being a DC motor, weirdly enough, the 2800 only needs pins 4 and a G450 and a G1000 only needs pins 4 and 5 to drive the rotator either clockwise or anti-clockwise. So you might buy a rotator cable, but you only need 2 cables, pins 4 and 5, and then the Rotator Genius at the top. That'll just fire the voltage that way or that way. That's literally all it does. and then it's got a current limiter on it, so it knows when it hits your end stop because the current must spike or something. I don't know, it's quite sensitive and occasionally just stops midway. But there we are. But when we do the inside shack tour, I'll show you all that software. So that's basically this bit. So we've got 40 metres, 20 metres and 10 at the moment. However, in last year's CQ Worldwide, I'll show you, I've got a big fan dipole for 80 and 160. I'll show you in a minute. I could hear K3LR on a top band, right? I could hear him S3, S4. It was a lovely signal, actually. But he couldn't hear me. And I thought, oh, we need more grunt on transmit for top band. So, because we've got this massive toy here, I thought, wouldn't it be an idea to feed the whole tower? So one of the reasons we've got an insulator just under the rotator was futuring the idea of having a big coil behind this box here. I mean, there's more to it than that, but effectively, big coil here, right, and drive this. Because if you think about it, the 4 square has got a huge amount of radials under here. I think I used, I have to ask Martin, it was either 7 or 8 rolls of DX10 wire. It's certainly 700 metres of wire under here. Now 700 metres on top band, which is 160. I mean, the minimum you could get away with is probably 300 metres. Well, I've got 700, so I'm getting on for, you know, like 4 wavelengths of radials under here, and then feeding the whole thing. So, but I thought it's probably not tall enough, which is why I put a signature 9, which is one of these 4 square poles right on the top. It's just sitting there at the moment, looking nice, right? Like a bunch of flowers. But I wanted to test out the dynamics of when the wind blows, what happens to the mast and all that sort of stuff. As it happens, I'm pretty happy with it. But that's a future project, because as Andy Linton pointed out, the SY3, which is a 10 metre 3-element Yagi from Sirio, that is kind of DC grounded. In other words, because it's got a gamma match and it's connected to the boom, there might be a short circuit going on at the base. In other words, I can't drive it at the moment. I might have to insulate the SY3. That is another job. Potentially, just here, we could have 4 antennas off this old mast thing. Talking about top band, we put top band, well, it's actually 160/80. There's a nice video about that, actually. And there's a little trick for you, is this is a, well, it's actually a fiberglass scaffolding pole. But it's roughly the same diameter. Is it fiberglass? Or is that, I can't remember what that is. It's definitely fiberglass. But just sitting above it is a sailboard windsurfing mast. And you'll find that a windsurfing sailboard, whatever it's called, mast diameter just fits and no more on top of a scaffolding pole. But that's how I've got a very strong 30-foot, 10-metre little mast here with the 80 and 160 at the top. So 160 goes all the way around into the corner and back down. It's like a horseshoe. And that's single feed, 80 and 160. The first ever antenna that ever went in here was a DX, some sort of DX commander. So I built this, it's basically on a tilt over. At the moment, this is a signature 12.4, which gives me 80 up to 10, 60. Did it do 60? No, the 18, signature 18 does 60 as well. So I haven't got 60. I think it works on a tuner, but anyway. So great. And then we've got, I think, I definitely put in 32 radials, and each radial is between 10 and 14 metres long. So there's quite a lot of radials. This works well, crosses the Atlantic easily. And that's been here. I've swapped this out. I've had a signature 9 here, an 18, a 12.4. It's my kind of test bed, right? So I don't really want to move this. So everything we have to do in this field, I'm not putting in another 32 radials and moving this point here. So pain in the butt. Finally, on the vertical front is this. It's another 12.4, but that's just an old B-grade pole that Lockie had lying around. And on the very top, we've got something called, well, I never gave it a name, but it's 3 verticals with shared radials. Basically, I leave the radials on average for about the 12-metre band, and then all I do is I adjust the element itself to get the best tune. So it's just 15, 12 and 10. I was going to put 6 on there as well, but I've got another plan for 6. All right, the final piece of the jigsaw for the moment is this thing. So this is mast 2, all right, which is very nice. Nothing on the top at the moment. Now, because I was just stuck for space, this is on a triangular guying system. It still comes over like a falling derrick, but I have to add, in fact, I've just got these under test at the moment. Before I tilt it over or put it back upright, we have to connect these little 90-degree, I call them Orphan guys, little volunteers, okay? Because if you think about it, if I put a falling derrick on here, and I've got a winch point over in the corner here, which I'll show you. As we started to drop that over, there would be a tendency for the mast to wander left or wander right, because it's a triangular guying system. So I've had to put these little volunteer guys in to hold it straight while it goes over. The idea being, I just haven't done it today, I'll disconnect those when it's not in use and just hang them up on here. By the way, these are I had cut. In fact, if locally you will find a laser cutter. Yeah, big company, lots of machines and stuff like that. But they will do, well, they'll do one-offs, right? Any little laser company. I mean, if you just say, look, I've got, could you cut me 4 things in 1/4-inch stainless steel, right? You know, simple drawing, you know, this big, this sort of hole. You'll be surprised, you'll get it done for literally a few dollars. And very often they've got a bit of scrap knocking around, they'll chuck it on. Particularly if you speak to the owner and just say, look, I've got $50 or I've got £20 note, and I'll just drop it over. I mean, when I built the big winch platform, I phoned the guy up and I said, I'm after a bit of angle this size. I said, look, I've got £20 on me, right? So what can you do? And he went, oh, I'll have it cut in a minute. So you've probably guessed already that the one thing that we're missing then is 15 metres. So we're building a 15-metre 3-element Yagi for the top of that. Now, 3-element Yagis, very often you'll find need a gamma match. You'll find it will be sort of 30 ohms. A lot of 3-element Yagis aren't 50 ohms, right? But if you move the driven element forward and backwards and so on, you can change the impedance. You get a trade-off, right? You get better front to back, better gain, lower gain, more front to back, all sorts of stuff. But I've got a design which I will cover with you shortly, which will be 3 elements, 50 ohm direct feed. Fingers crossed, according to the maths. There are videos about everything that we've done here. Just go through the back catalogue. There's too many videos, I can't list them all. The loop on the ground is quite interesting, and we used to have a very, very long wire facing the USA. That was actually, it gave me certainly 3 or 4 extra dB gain signal to noise for the US, because the US is down there. And that was an interesting experiment, but it went AWOL one day, and I never kind of worked out why. I was just too busy doing other things. I've got 2 elements now for 20 metres anyway. I'd love that to be 3 elements one day, but not today. I've got enough on my plate to be getting on with. Lots of other stuff. We haven't got 2 and 70. I've got antennas for 2 and 70. We don't have a mast. The ideal candidate would be this little tri-band vertical here. Chop all that down, put another put another triangular guy system in again, falling derrick, blah-de-blah-de-blah, and we're away. Before I go, I was going to show you this, because we use that winch extensively around here at the field for putting the little mast 2 in. I sunk that into the ground with a bit of concrete, and I've got a nice stainless pulley and a long rope, and that comes all the way up here, you see, round the pulley, and allows me to put up and down the little triangular thing. I did have visions of putting beverages up for, or beverages down, beverage on the ground actually, for VK, which is facing over there, short path, and USA. That's a loud aeroplane. But I got too tied up. I haven't really been on the radio for a couple of months. We've been flat out in the field here, building. But if I can get this all finished in the summer, then in the winter we can do some contests, and because this whole station is for 2 people, not just one. We've got band pass filters and everything. But when we do the inside, right, separate video, not today, I'll cover all that with you. All right, well, I think that's about it. I tell you what, the blue skies, we've got I tell you what, we might have rain, but I've got blue sky as well. No doubt there'll be a rainbow knocking around. But there we are. So lots to do still. I can't wait for this 160. That should be good fun. My glasses, I never know quite what to do with them. But have a great day. Enjoy your radio, guys. And I will be on again soon. I haven't been streaming much. Just busy with the field. All right, you take it easy now. Bye for now.